I said kneel. His voice thundered across the village square like a curse. She stood still, barefoot on the red earth, her breathing shallow, a travel bag balanced on her head with a hole torn straight through it. Her eyes burned, not with tears, but with defiance. Behind her, the villagers gathered, whispering, judging, pointing. But Adanna didn't kneel. She stood eye to eye with the man in the white suit, the man who thought money gave him the right to own her. The man who had just called her his wife. Chike Obi. The arrogant billionaire who had come to her village, thrown money at her family's debt, and demanded her as payment. 2 days ago, she had been at the stream, laughing with her younger sister, singing a folk song about freedom. 2 days ago, she was poor, but free. Now, she was in the middle of the village, being humiliated in front of everyone she'd ever known. She could still hear his words from the day before. Cold. Final. Be my wife, or your family loses everything. The house. The land. Even the little farm you survive on. Choose. It wasn't a proposal. It was a transaction. A punishment wrapped in privilege. Adanna didn't choose love. She chose survival. Her mother had begged her to accept. Her siblings needed food. Her father's ghost still haunted their broken home with unpaid debts. So she said yes. Not to a future, but to a sacrifice. On the wedding day, there was no music, no celebration, no smiles. Just shame. Chike didn't even look at her during the vows. He signed the papers like he was closing a business deal. Then he left, without a word, leaving her behind in the same rags he found her in. A week later, a black SUV came to take her to the city. The mansion was enormous. Marble floors, chandeliers, gold-trimmed furniture. But it was cold. Silent. Empty. Like him. He gave her a room at the far end of the house, not even a glance of acknowledgement. Days passed. He came and went as he pleased. Not a word. Not a question. Not even cruelty, just indifference. One evening, she made him a simple meal. Yam porridge, the way her mother used to make it. He scoffed. Do I look like I eat this village nonsense? She left the plate anyway. An hour later, the plate was clean. The next day, he passed her in the hall. For the first time, he paused. Did you cook again? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. That night, it rained heavily. The power went out. She lit a candle and walked the mansion barefoot. In the library, she found him, sitting on the floor, a shattered glass near his hand, blood dripping from his fingers. Go away, he muttered. She didn't. Instead, she wrapped his hand with the edge of her wrapper. Why are you helping me? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Because someone has to remind you you're still human. He looked at her then, not as a servant. Not as a deal. But as a person. For the first time, Chike was quiet. The next day, she found a guitar on the table. Her younger brother's name written on a note beside it. Chike had sent money to enroll Abuka in music school. No one asked him to. He just did. She turned to him, confused. You did this? He looked down. He deserves better. You all do. Something in her heart shifted. He started coming home earlier. Sitting near her when she cooked. Asking questions. Laughing, awkwardly, but real. One evening, she found him watching her while she folded clothes. Did you ever love anyone before me? He asked. She smiled faintly. You assume I love you? He was silent. Nervous. She walked away. But she didn't say no. The next morning, he was waiting in the garden. He dropped to his knees, not with arrogance, but with sincerity. I was raised to believe I could own anything I wanted. But you've taught me what it means to earn something real. Adanna, I want to change. I want to be your husband, not your master. Will you let me try? She froze. Her heart pounded. Her lips trembled. She had dreamed of hearing something like this. Not just words, but a man asking to earn her love. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, the mansion gates burst open. Chief Obi stormed in, holding documents. "There's a new offer. Another man has offered double the debt. You don't need her anymore, Chike." Chike stood up, stunned. "What are you talking about?" "The deal is off," the chief snapped. "She must choose. Or I will." Adanna looked at Chike. Then she looked at the man who had sold her like property. And in that moment, she realized, her next words would not just define her future. They would destroy someone's empire. The silence stretched so long it felt like the air had stopped moving. Adanna stood frozen between two lives. One behind her, where pain, shame, and sacrifice had taught her endurance. One ahead of her, still uncertain, but no longer held by chains. All eyes were on her, the chief, his son, the new bidder waiting outside in a luxury car, and the staff who had long stopped pretending not to listen. Chike stepped forward, slowly, like someone approaching a cliff. "You don't have to choose out of fear," he said, voice low. "If you walk away now, I won't stop you. I won't chase. But if there's even the smallest chance that you believe I've changed, that I can be better, I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." She turned to Chief Obi, who sneered like a man who believed his power was final. "I am not for sale," Adanna said, voice clear. "Not to your son. Not to your buyers. I married out of duty. But I will stay only if there is dignity." And with that, she walked past both men and entered the mansion. The chief's face twisted with rage. But for the first time, Chike didn't flinch under his father's anger. He let it come. Let it burn. Because something else had begun to grow in him, something more powerful than control. Respect. Over the next few days, everything changed. The mansion that once echoed with silence now held the warmth of laughter. Chike canceled his next business trip, something he never did. He started spending mornings in the kitchen, watching her cook, learning names of spices he'd never heard of. One night, he walked into the sitting room holding a tray, clumsily made jollof rice. "It's probably terrible," he admitted. She tasted it and laughed. "It is." He chuckled, embarrassed, and sat beside her. "I'll learn." She nodded. "Then I'll teach you." They didn't talk about love. Not yet. It was growing silently between them, like a tree that had once been cut but found new roots. Chike no longer barked orders at staff. He spoke gently, even apologized when he lost his temper. But healing is not a straight line. One afternoon, during a board meeting on speakerphone, Adanna walked in to hand him a file. He snapped without thinking. "Next time, knock before entering. This is not your father's hut." The words stung. They landed like a slap in the quiet room. The board members fell silent. Adanna didn't speak. She just placed the file on the table and walked out. Later that night, she didn't come down for dinner. He knocked on her door. No response. He sat outside her door for an hour, replaying the words in his head, hating himself for how easy it was to slip into who he used to be. "Adanna," he said through the door, "I messed up. Not just today. From the beginning. I don't expect you to forgive me tonight. But I want you to know. I'm not going back to who I was. Even if you never speak to me again, I'll still become better. Because you woke up the part of me I buried long ago." The door opened. Her face was tired, but calm. "You don't get to be angry and then pretend it never happened," she said. "But I see you trying. And that matters. Just don't ever forget where I came from, or think I'll ever go back to being silent." "I won't," he promised. The next morning, a surprise waited for her. A small plot of land, signed in her name. A letter inside the file. "Build your mother her dream house. You deserve roots of your own." Tears filled her eyes. She didn't say anything when she saw him that day. She just hugged him, for the first time. Days turned into weeks. Chike took her to his construction sites. She asked questions, took notes, even gave suggestions. His team was shocked when he said, "Adanna will be my project partner." Listen to her. One evening, as the sun melted into gold outside their bedroom window, he turned to her and said, "I've built towers in cities across the country. But none of them make me feel as proud as watching you take space in my life." She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "And I've scrubbed floors in silence for years. But now, I finally feel seen." They kissed, not as strangers forced by circumstance, but as two people who had chosen each other through fire. But not everyone was happy. Chief Obi returned, furious. "You embarrassed this family," he spat at Chike. "You married a nobody, and now you let her speak in boardrooms?" "She's not a nobody," Chike said, voice firm. "She's the reason I'm not a monster anymore. I gave you everything." "You gave me money," Chike said, standing tall. "She gave me a soul." The chief tried to sue for control of the family business. He failed. Chike had already rewritten the company charter, with Adanna's name as co-owner. They built a scholarship fund in her village. Sent girls to school. Opened a health clinic. Every time Adanna stepped foot in the village again, she did so with her head high, not carrying a torn bag on her head, but bringing gifts, pride, and power. One evening, while walking through a schoolyard they funded, Chike stopped and looked at her. "I married you to pay a debt. But I ended up owing you everything." She smiled, wrapped her fingers in his. "You don't owe me," she whispered. "You loved me back." And for the first time, they didn't look like a billionaire and a village girl. They looked like something deeper. Two broken stories that had finally written a beautiful ending together.